Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand. With me, as always, is Logan Stump. How are you today, Logan?
Oh, hey, Jordan! I didn't see you there. How's it going?
Good. What action is this a spin on?
I know. I think there's definitely an attraction that does it, but I can't remember which one. I think it's Universal, but it's like the person's not paying attention. Like, oh, hey, I didn't see you there, and it's kind of like this, this lead into like, hey, welcome to your death. I think it might be Mummy. Now that I think about it, that sounds
I
very
thought maybe it
mummy-like.
was gonna be Melon or something.
Nah, I
I
think it's
haven't
Brendan
rode that.
Fraser.
So
Yeah,
I don't know.
have you not ridden Mummy?
I haven't done the Jimmy Fallon one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was on me if that's what it was. But it was lost on me anyway. But we are here to talk the Stateside Soccer Show, all of MLS news. We've got some big on today. Today that FIFA announced that they have approved Balogun's one-time switch to the USA. So let's get at him. Job done. I think they said he's available for the June 15th game against Mexico semifinal.
Sorry, you glitched out.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun. I think it'll be interesting to kind of see what he does. Like you talked about this before. I mean, we talked about this extensively, right? Where you were like, and I can remember this quote specifically. I hear it all the time. Every time somebody new pops up for U.S. men's national team, I can always remember you saying, I don't know why people are so caught up in like who's coming up next and what's coming up next, because there's going to be somebody that comes out of nowhere that is one of these dual nationals, and they just come onto the scene and they end up being the guy. And here he is. This has happened, and I think there's so many people that this was never an option, especially leading up to this World Cup. So the one-time switch over to the United States, it's like, wow, like we literally were gifted a number 9 that we didn't really have any kind of pulse on before this happened. So,
And I know people say like, oh, well, he's on the radar, blah, blah, blah. But it is different when it's official and you can actually count him now as one of the men I can call on for 2026. I mean, we pretty much got our starting striker for 20, right? He's got 31 starts in Liga Un for Reims, and he's 19 goals. We have not had a player score that high in any top flight league in quite some time. Right, so this is something that you hope he doesn't fall off now that he's got the U.S. crest on, right? I mean, sometimes that happens.
yeah.
And then they get injured or whatever, downhill. So hopefully this is not just like a 1-year flash in the pan, because if you look at last year, Middlesbrough, 18 matches played, 9 goals. That's still like, goal every game. 3 goals, 9 starts. So that's the other every third game, which is pretty good. He's got to step up in Liga Un, but it's just one of those things where you kind of worry sometimes of making the jump from what he was on, which was like an Arsenal youth team, to making a jump to the championship, to making the jump to Liga Un. And now it's like, okay, how does that translate, right? How does that translate going forward? And hopefully this is not a 1-year flash in the pan. We've seen those from players before. So I'm still going to be cautiously optimistic here. Some people some people have already called him the best striker in CONCACAF. Let's simmer down just a tad. Let's wait to see how he continues to pan out. But I know people are probably not listening to the show to have, I don't know, like not hot takes but cold takes. Of like, hey, let's not get too out of hand here. I don't think many people are listening for that, but that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Jordan, he's not the best striker in CONCACAF. He's the best striker in the world at this point. I mean, you look at this guy and you really do feel that he could be the next guy. You could be the next Ronaldo. He could be the next Messi. He's on. No, I'm kidding. He, like you said, I think
you know what that sounds like though, Logan.
yeah.
This is
Skip
going to sound
Bayless.
out of left field. That sounds like MLB The Show.
Yeah.
And you do the road to the show, and now they have all
Right.
those talking heads,
Yeah.
and they obviously can't see him. They're like, look at this guy.
Yes.
This guy is tearing it up. He just got promoted to the bigs. What was it like? And that's how you sounded. This guy is just great.
Mostly because I try to avoid saying the name Balogun because I don't know how to say it. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. Is it Balogun? Right?
I that's what I think.
Okay. So yeah,
It's also Folarian.
Yeah.
U.S. men's national team said like their post about it on Facebook was just flow. It's not flow, right? No. It's Folarian. It's the way they pronounce it that I don't know.
Maybe they're just confused. They're like, we don't know how to say his name either, so we're just
gonna we did not know this was happening.
We weren't ready for the graphic. So just throw a flag on him and get him that kit from 12 years ago and throw it on him. We'll put some shadows on him and you'll never know he's wearing a kit that doesn't actually no I'm kidding. But
he is 21, by the way, older than youngsters.
Yeah. I think it's a big difference though. I mean it's somebody that can score goals, and he's done it in a top league. And like you said, if it's not a flash in the pan, I mean, this is a massive win for the U.S. If he continues to put out the numbers that he does, I mean, I think talent wise and what I've read about him, they like the skill set more so than they like a lot of the other number 9 options, obviously. So I'm pretty excited about where this is headed, just because I think he's got. He does. He's kind of got the Timothy Weah kind of feel to him. He's kind of got the creation of like a Weston McKennie, but he's also pretty strong. So I think he's got the abilities to really just propel this team. And we've already got really good midfielders and wingers in beside him. So this is really just that icing on the cake, right? I think we talked about this, and I think we both really want a good center back that is just consistent, because that seemed to be a real struggle this last World Cup. So.
Center forward or center back?
Both.
Yeah, I would take both. Also cooled down quite a bit because I remember leading Liga on. There are now players like Mbappe is 20, Lacazette 25, Jonathan David is 21. So there you go. There's already a better CONCACAF striker there if you're going to get technical. We're just supposed to have the hype, but I'm just saying. Ben Yedder has Lois Openda has 19. Habib is 20. I feel like I just nailed every one of those names too, by the way. So feeling about myself. Okay. But are you hyped, Logan? Are you excited about it?
Yeah, I already bought a
Balogun jersey.
Yeah, and I've also said, I mean, I've got a tattoo that says top goal scorer in the history of FIFA, like all sorts of stuff tattooed on my wrist because of how good he's going to be. Absolutely buying the hype train, Jordan. We're going to go absolutely bonkers nuts about talking about him. So
I'm excited we have a striker that we can try out. I'm going to be more measured. That's probably the word I was looking for earlier. Measured takes. Logan, we've had this so many times.
We have.
And I get different because he's got 19 goals this year. But I was thinking back to, all right, I was looking at scores of Birmingham Legion. And guess who's on that team? Juan Agudelo, okay? Former MLS player, former Stoke City player, right? I think he went to Stoke at one point. I remember when he scored against Argentina when he was 17 years old, and everyone on Twitter and everywhere was like, we got him. We got our guy. He's going to lead us to the promised land. And, it didn't work out, right? So I will be a bit more skeptical, I think, going forward when we're talking about getting these players, Twitter kind of falls in love with, I think is what I'll say. I'm excited to see him in a U.S. shirt. Let's get him in against Mexico. But I excited about that because we don't have a like. It's hard to get excited about even because I don't know what we're gonna take from it. A coach, we have a GM. That's great. Did a role for Gucci on Awu, so we got another. But let's get a coach in. I know saying this, but I'm gonna say it. Like I'm almost at the point of just hire someone so that way some decisions for the next 3 years because we only have 3 years starting next month to prepare for 2026. So I'm a little nervous about it.
Well, I mean, the good thing though is Jordan is that we've got a man at the helm like Anthony Hudson right now. I mean, we've got Zendejas, we've got Balogun, right? Completely stamped out the Giorena stuff. We've
Can I
qualified
correct
for the 2026 World Cup already, Jordan. I don't know what else you want from this guy.
Can I correct quick though?
Yeah.
When I said just give it to anybody, okay, not Anthony Hudson. Let's move on from that at least. I'll correct myself on that.
Well, there's a lot of free agent coaches out there now, and there will continue to be over the next coming weeks. So I think we're going to have our pick, like we talked about. So
yeah, we'll see. Okay, anything else about Balogun before we move on to the next topic?
Gosh, there's some huge topics today. No.
All right, yeah. San Diego is apparently going to be club number 30 in MLS. This out at 6:59 right before we went live. Yep. Major League Soccer says MLS Commissioner Don Garber and Mansour and Saquon Tribe will be joined by San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria for a major announcement on Thursday. San expansion will soon be formally announced. Club number 30 in MLS. Thoughts, I guess. One, these announcements are always in the sense of obviously we know what you're announce. It's so dumb, right? When he puts out that tweet saying Don Garber, like MLS saying, hey, there's a huge announcement in San Diego on Thursday. It's like, okay, what else could that be? We're here to celebrate Landon Donovan and the Lloyd. No, they're not going to do that, right? They're going to announce an expansion on San Diego getting it and it not being able, got shunted to the side, and we're now going to have just a totally different ownership team for San Diego. I worry about what that'll lead to for the Loyal. Is that market big enough? I mean, right? I mean, it's actually a pretty small market. It's smaller market than Baltimore. If Baltimore doesn't get a team, but San Diego gets a team. So I'm a little frustrated with that. I'm kind of glad it's not Vegas. I'll say, I guess that'll probably be number 31 or 32. They're going to keep going past 30, guarantee it. But I worry about the Loyal. Apparently, it's a $500 million expansion fee, which is getting nowadays. But I'm kind of at the point of so many expansion teams recently. I'm kind of down on this one. I don't really know why. I kind of just pretty. It's like we've gotten so many expansions recently, not hitting me. It's like whatever. We got another expansion team. Maybe I'll get hyped with the rest. Maybe I'll like the name. It's just a little bit of a downer today. I guess I'm in a today. I don't know what it is, but I'm not really news, Logan. I can't really say what I'm bummed. It's not Sacramento Republic. Bummed, somewhere else that I think has a better chance of really catching on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting for Orlando City to get a soccer club. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. I'm so sorry, Orlando City. Please don't come after me. But no, I
Never
never get
getting
loud again.
in the press box again.
No, but yeah, like I think it's an interesting market because it always performs well as far as TV numbers are concerned. I will say that being in Southern California, that does help as
But that
well.
doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I guess yeah, because you have the Apple deal, so it doesn't matter as far as viewership. But I mean, I think San Diego is becoming and it always has been a vibrant city. It's kind of a city that's always been one that people have always wanted to move to. I do know from just personal experience that a couple of my friends have looked to move out there. There's like kind of that it's kind of that movement that, and again, it's kind of limited because of where it is in California. It's very expensive to live in San Diego, but there is a kind of a youth movement towards San Diego. It's just you need a lot of youth when you're talking about soccer because I feel like MLS. I think one of the things that's very interesting about this sport is that its biggest fan base kind of demographic is from like that 24 to 38, 39 year olds. That there's a massive difference between the number of season tickets I think that are owned by younger people. It is a pretty youthful game in this country as far as the fan base is concerned. That'd be my biggest concern in San Diego, just because they've had to like look, Jordan. They've moved. They're moving all their teams out of San Diego. Like the Chargers left, right? There's not really a basketball team that they have to kind of call their own. You look at San Diego, you look at the Padres, but they never really get the fans involved as much anymore, just because they've just been hot and cold ever since they've been, kind of ever since I think there was like stretch there in the early '90s where they were relevant, like with Tony Gwynn. But like San Diego's really struggled as far as a sports city. So I am interested to kind of see that. I think
The Padres have drawn well recently, though.
Yeah, I mean they've got a better team now,
but they've also spent like $500 million just on the
yes,
team.
and blew it up. Like, don't forget that. Like they went out and bought all these players that they thought were going to be phenomenal and had to blow it up, and that's how they've gotten to where they are now because they've had to.
Should we bring back extra innings? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think so. But no, I do worry that. Like, I think you got a really good concern there. Like, this is going to be a more, I think, affluent population, and they are not typically ones that go to soccer games. If that's it's kind of strange to say, but it is. It's a younger game in this country. So I don't know. There's not a lot of. I don't think there's a ton of young people in San Diego because it's really expensive to live there. So I don't know. Got a good point.
Okay, just making sure I'm not on mute. All right. I'm just looking at it's okay. Baltimore is number 28, apparently. San Diego is number 30.
And what?
Media market size. So, of course, number one is New York, LA, Chicago, Philly, Dallas, Atlanta, Houston, DC, Boston, San Francisco, Phoenix, Seattle, Tampa, Detroit, Minneapolis, Denver, Orlando, Miami, Sacramento, Charlotte, Portland, Rock, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Salt Lake, San Diego. So there's actually teams in most of these markets, by the way,
there are.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, looking at this, we're missing out on a Phoenix club, right? San Francisco is the San Francisco and San Jose market, so we got that covered. Got two New York teams, two LA teams, a
Dallas,
Chicago
Houston.
team, a Dallas team, an Atlanta team, a Houston team, DC, Boston. We've got Seattle. We don't have a Tampa, so it's market number 13. We don't have a Detroit. That's market number 14. We have Minneapolis. We have Denver. We have Orlando. We have Miami. We don't have one. We don't need a third Ohio team, so I'm not even going to call for that, by the way. Sacramento is one that's been talked about. Now we know why. It's number 20 in television market. We now have a Charlotte. We have Portland. We don't have Raleigh. We don't have Indy. We don't have Pittsburgh. But we have Nashville. We have St. Louis. We don't have Baltimore, but we have Salt Lake. And now San Diego. So out of the 30 teams that we have in the league, there's 30 markets. Columbus is market number 32. They have a team there. They have Kansas City is market 33. They have a team in Austin and Cincinnati, which are markets 35 and 30. So there you go. Everybody going for a loss, but by the way, that's media market number 40, which is lower than West Palm Beach. So, other than that, we're kind of covering all of those regions. But Baltimore can't handle it, apparently.
Yeah.
It's good salty. This is by the 2022-2023 Nielsen, by the way. But again, that doesn't really matter anymore. It still kind of does, because you want those people to... You want a large market. All of them are buying the MLS season pass, but not everyone would, obviously. Interesting thoughts here. I saw some people say they really want the club to have like a Spanish name because it's close, and the city itself is in a Spanish name, San Diego. Do you think that's a must?
I mean, I think if they keep the Loyal, I think that is Spanish. So like,
yeah, but they can't, because they're going to be different ownership.
Exist. Yeah, okay. Then I mean, why not? Right? I mean, I think if they can come up with a clever name, like not some stupid, but like the Cats or something like that. Like, come up with a name that is similar to like San Diego Gatos.
Cats Spanish?
Yeah, like I don't come up with something. I don't know if you can come up with something that is interesting, that is clever to play off of they've got a huge Spanish population. Then for sure, by all means, because I know, Jordan, they're ultimately what they're doing is they're expanding into these markets, and there's always been these talks, and it seems like it's headed more that direction, that we are going to get Mexican clubs in MLS somehow. It seems like it's headed in that direction, or at least they're trying to play to the Mexican market and the Hispanic market by having teams and locales that the Hispanic and Mexican populations are huge in.
That's what they want, because they want the people that are diehard like Atlas fans and stuff, Club America fans, to be able to say, this club's now. And while I'll always watch Club America on TV, I'm going to go to local games and watch and I'd rather something like the Padres, right, where it is Spanish, than like the Chargers, which was just where did they even get that? That was a team that moved there, right?
Chargers?
Yeah.
They have to have. I don't know where that name would have come from.
They're just like, we like lightning bolts. Draw that. It is weird how some of these teams get their names, right?
They were in LA originally, supposedly.
Yes,
1960,
that's right. That's
1960s.
Right. We know LA loves their Chargers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I'm just down on it because we get it. We've got so many expansion teams recently, and this is like first year St. Louis. First year without one in a while. No, we did a team this year. Last year was one with no. Charlotte was a new team. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's too many new teams right now.
Yeah, Austin.
And you know what this means? We're going to add San Diego, and they're going to add 2 playoff spots next year, or whenever San Diego enters the league, they'll be like, "Oh, 2 more playoff spots for you."
Yeah.
Also, kind of miss when they used to bring in 2 teams at once. That was a lot of fun, like NYCFC Orlando. So we like, instead of being like, "Well, who's moving to the West this year?" or "Who's moving this year?" like Nashville going from East to West to East again. I want stuff to be able to settle eventually, to where you can have your actual rivals, and you can have. We're not always talking about new team. Is kind of the goal at some point. So I do think they'll maybe pause at 30 for a bit, but I still don't think it'll be long enough. I think they'll be like, "Oh, Vegas does want a team?
Yeah.
Swooping in for number 31.
Yep.
And then where do you go for 32?
I think Indianapolis is a good shout. I think Baltimore and Pittsburgh, honestly, if I
Indy,
was thinking.
yeah.
Because
I'm
Indianapolis,
not going to say Baltimore because I'm going to curse it. So
yeah,
I'm just going to whatever.
I will say Indianapolis's ownership group that own Indy 11 are throwing like $1 billion into a new venue for them. For USL, it looks like an immaculate stadium. So I think that really is a logistical. I think too, because the way that I think eventually, Jordan, it also I think they start to consider this idea of having different regions and having maybe not a Western Conference, Eastern Conference, but having divisions because that's the way that it seems like all U.S. sports have gone. So, but I don't know how that would all work. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, but I think Indy's got a good. I think Detroit too. I think you mentioned Detroit. Detroit's
Yeah.
a massive
I would
market.
Tampa,
Yeah.
the only way I'd want Tampa is if it's the Rowdies, though.
Yep. Same.
Do not want it to be somebody else.
No.
If we're gonna get Tampa, it's gonna be the Rowdies because I don't want MLS to just keep doing what they're doing and trying to kill some clubs. I want somebody to move over.
It would be fun too if Pittsburgh got in. They continued to be the Riverhounds. Like you would have like the Riverhounds and the Rowdies, and they'd be like, "What is happening?" Because those names are so completely crazy. I think for because the Timbers,
it's
right?
MLS 1.0, yeah.
Because it really does have that name.
Sounders, Timbers, those are names that were around before MLS, obviously. Whitecaps, right? It's more similar
Wizards.
to those names, like the Wizards. Yeah, exactly.
Bring them back.
Bring them. I'm sure SKC fans are happy that they're no longer called.
Well, I don't know now.
Hey, they've got 2 in a row. We're flying high right now. All right, salaries. We got to talk some salaries here. Who do you know who's the top earner? Did you get spoiled on that? Okay.
Oh, wait, are you talking about clubs?
Oh, I'm talking about players.
Oh, no. I didn't see that part. I'd only seen the clubs part. I did not see this, no. Okay, I guess.
This person is number 1 because their salary is lower than number 2. But I'm assuming it's like add-ons or something. Because base salary, it's lower than number 1 on this list. With $7.3 million.
7.3. There's a lot of players in this league. Shoot. Are they worth this much?
No.
Okay.
They've not any.
Jeez. I feel like it's definitely somebody that's come overseas.
You're right there.
Not Douglas Costa.
No, it's Shaqiri.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yikes.
Now, his base salary is $7.5 million or 350 million, whatever it is. The base salary under him is Insigne with 0.5 million. Again, I'm guessing it's going off of because they have a guaranteed compensation. So this includes their base salary and guaranteed compensation. So he's higher than Insigne, but Insigne is pay a higher base salary. Number 3 is Chicharito with 6 mil. Bernadeschi with 3.1 mil. Sebastian Driussi with 3.8. Hector Herrera 0.7. Again, that's because the other people have higher compensation. Douglas 3 mil. Ooh. Orajo from Atlanta 3.6. Benteke 4.2 million. Joseph Marti 4 million. Zella Ryan 3.2. I'm not going to go through the whole 25 list, but you can find it. The lowest one on the list is Brenner out of the top 25 with 1.68. Oh, okay. Total compensation. I had to scroll over. So for guaranteed compensation, Shaqiri gets 8.1. That's why he's so much higher. So there you go. I've also read from Tom Bogert this stuff doesn't really mean anything at times too. Like it's not super clear with the way that MLS still kind of hide some of this stuff. So it may not fully be accurate in the sense of it's, again, with the whole compensation thing versus base salary, and are they actually paying that much? Because some people will calculate this stuff for the teams, and you had that list, right, of all the teams that have high and low, but one that's not including how much they're spending to bring players in. It's just salary, so that's kind of a skewed thing. Because if we're looking at overseas, people will say Chelsea spent 500 million in transfers over the course of the last year. While over here, people will be like, well, Orlando's only spent 20 million on salary. It's like, yeah, but we're not doing salary when we're comparing it to other leagues. We're looking at transfers. And Orlando had a big transfer window, so like it's a little bit that way. And a little bit with just like wonky bookkeeping, I would say too. Let's not forget one of these teams did have 4 DPs at one point that went unnoticed for a year, even though they released the salaries. So again, there could be stuff here that is not 100% correct. But I don't know. When are they going to pull the plug on the Shaqiri?
Another thing too that I found interesting, because they added it all up. Tom added it all up as far as highest salary spends in MLS. And Bogert said that number one is Toronto at 25 mil, 25.7. LA Galaxy 23.5, Atlanta United 21.3, DC United 20 million, and then Austin 19.9 million. And if you look at those teams, Jordan, they're all sniffing the bottom of the table, or close enough to the bottom of the table that it's recognizable that they're spending that much money. The only one on that list that is actually performing pretty well, and I think above expectations, is Atlanta. But it seems, but Atlanta, I think out of all the clubs, Atlanta, to be honest with you, even though LA Galaxy are on this list, I feel like Atlanta is the team that I would look at and go, well, yeah, they should spend a lot of money. The Arthur Blank is a billionaire, so like, hey, of course he's going to spend money. So it makes sense that they should be in that top conversation. But the fact that the Galaxy and Toronto and Austin and DC are hanging out up there and just not performing, I think that's more damning than anything, especially Toronto. Like, I felt Toronto with the coach they have, the caliber of players they have, there's no excuse to be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, but here they sit.
And this is the tweet I was talking about. Tom Bogert said, I say this every year, but salary spend can be a misleading figure. It's essentially how much team is spending on their DPs. For instance, Orlando have spent probably 15 million in transfers over the last 2 seasons, in addition to the 11 salary this year. So again, it's not a total picture. And that's why I think you are seeing the top 5 salary and spend be teams that are kind of disproportionate.
Yeah.
Where they are on the table, is because some of these teams, like Toronto, 25.7 mil. Well, great. Like 10 mil of that is just Bernadeschi and Insigne.
That's true.
Right? So,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, and all these teams kind of do that, right? All these like LA has Costa and Chicharito in the top like 10. So it is a little skewed a bit. But yeah, it's interesting, I guess, just looking at the numbers and where some of these teams fall.
But
go ahead.
But that being said, too, it's like, well, yes, that is true. It also speaks to the ownership's inability to sign DPs that actually make a difference. Like,
I wouldn't say ownership. I would say the GM.
Right? Yeah, right. It's not ownership. Sorry. But yeah, like, I mean, for instance, I think, right, Bob Bradley is the director of football. He always has been, I think, wherever he's gone. I can't remember if he's director.
I don't think he was at LA. I'm not sure, though.
Maybe not LA. But, I mean, all the same, it's like you spend all this money, and, like, yeah, Chicharito's been decent, but Douglas Costa has not been good at all.
Let's not forget they had Cabral, too, at one point.
Right, that's true. It's true.
Just the wrong players.
Yeah, but Bernadeschi, I mean, he's probably been the star out of all of them. I think he's played well. but the
And
rest of them,
Insigne's been hurt.
yeah, he's just never
Yeah.
touches the pitch. Which I mean, we kind of figured that was going to happen as soon as he came over. He got hurt, so it's like once that starts to happen in your 30s, then it's pretty much downhill from there. So it
I can attest to that.
right, yeah. I mean, there's not a day Jordan and I don't wake up and we're not out there making millions playing soccer, and that's
Oh,
how
I
you
thought you were
know
gonna
that.
say that we wake
Oh,
up and we're already like sore.
well,
And
we
it's
already
like,
are. Yeah, we
yeah,
already are. That,
wake up,
but
my back
that's why
hurts.
we don't make millions playing soccer, Jordan.
I'm still recovering from the last time I played soccer a couple years ago. Reynoso was cleared to return to Minnesota as well, by the way. And USL announces a new women's pro league to rival the NWSL. It's called the Super League?
Oh, not again, Jordan. Are you
USL
serious?
Super League?
Bringing back the Super League? I thought we got rid of this before.
Oh, this is a different one. This
Oh,
is a
okay.
different one. 8 markets are getting teams, and they are getting Charlotte, Dallas, Lexington, Phoenix, Spokane, Tampa, Tucson, and Washington, D.C. Which is
Decent
kind of
cities.
strange because D.C. already has a team.
Yeah.
And this really, they should have gone to Philly because Philly's been asking for an NWSL team. I feel like if you give them this instead, that might have been a good move, but I don't know. I go to other team, especially if you're going to start out as a new women's league. So the NWSL is the exception, and what I mean by that they are the ones that have lasted the longest. There was
Right.
plenty of women's leagues building up to the NWSL that would last a couple years and fizzle out. If you're going to be a team or a league, I guess, that's going to try to be a rival with that, I would want to go to markets where the other league is not in. Because what that is potentially take eyeballs off of their league and onto your league because you're the league that's in town. It's the same thing of when we're talking about how USL should expand into markets that MLS is not in. And that is partly why MLS is now into markets that USL is in. They see that it can exist and that it can be popular. And they're like, we're going to be the one in town now. And it creates this type of thing. So if I was USL Super League for the women's, I would just go to markets like Philly that have been asking for it. I would go to markets that don't have teams already in the NWSL. And then once your league is up and running, you can start moving into those markets as you continue to grow. But I think it's bad things when you're only having 8 teams launch, starting in some of those markets that other teams are already in, because I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, setting you up not to succeed right off the bat. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be successful.
Yeah, and if not, they can play the cactus and grapefruit leagues, because I think every team that you name is pretty much. That's a joke, by the way, but like Tucson and Phoenix, those are both in Arizona. You have Tampa. Then you said the one that kills me though is Lexington. Like what? Like Lexington, Kentucky?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's an
Hold
interesting
on.
city.
What media market is that? Let me find that.
Oh, that I don't even think that. Right? Well, I guess
Number
it would.
63.
Yeah, the Wildcats are there, and that's the only reason people watch Lexington.
The Wildcats. What are they?
Kentucky, the college basketball.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They probably only register on a TV market because of them.
And Spokane is number 67.
Yeah, it's not great.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes from there. I'm not sure when they're supposed to launch. They're trying to get Division 1 status as well, just like NWSL has. Oh, okay. And then there's 5 other markets that are expected to join the league in 2025 if their stadium projects come to fruition. So that's a little shaky, I guess, but that would be Indianapolis, Chattanooga, Jacksonville, Madison. Oakland might get a team. They might actually get a team that doesn't leave them for Las Vegas. That's nice.
until they get there and go, what were you thinking?
I mean, seriously, they lost the Warriors to San
Yeah.
Francisco. They lose the Raiders. They're losing the A's. It's a sad time if you're an Oakland fan, I guess. I saw people also getting on them for having like the record lowest attendance to a game yesterday, 2,000 some people. And I'm kind of like, but if you already know your team's leaving, why even bother going?
Right.
If you know they're leaving.
Yeah.
If I knew a team was abandoning my city, I'm not, even though you're like, well, you could show them. They've already made the deal with Vegas. I would stop going as well. What's the point?
Yeah, you kind of want to ask what's wrong with the 2,000 people that went.
Yeah, they're probably fans of the other team or something.
They might be. Gosh, could you imagine the ticket prices? It'd be so cheap.
You would think, right? Watson
Yeah.
probably still be the same price that they were.
I was gonna say you can go fly over to see the Orioles play them.
Yeah. All right. The games that happened this weekend: Chicago beat St. Louis 1-0. Considered a rivalry match. Charlotte beat Atlanta 3-1. Columbus drew with Orlando 2-0. This was a 2-2. Sorry, it was a 2-0 lead for Columbus, and I was like, "What is going on in Orlando?" And then Orlando came back and tied it up near the death. DC drew with Nashville 1-1. Miami took down New England Revolution, and with Cincinnati not playing this week, that means both of them are still tied on points of 24 points on the top of the East. Montreal beat Toronto 0. That's right after they beat them in the Canadian Championship matches. New York Red Bulls beat NYCFC 1-0. Dallas stole it at the death against Austin 1-0. Seattle beat Houston 1-0. SKC trounced Minnesota 3-0. Philadelphia beat Colorado 2-1. Thank goodness. LAFC beat RSL 3-0. Portland beat Vancouver 1, and the LA Galaxy beat San Jose 2-1. Where does that leave us in the standings? New England and Cincinnati first and second in the East. Nashville in third. Atlanta in fourth. Philly has now bumped all the way up to fifth place. Miami has jumped all the way up to sixth. Montreal is in a playoff spot at number 7. Columbus is in 8th. DC is in 9th. NYCFC is in 10th. Orlando down to 11th. Charlotte at 12th. And you know what's fun about the teams from 6th to 12th? They all have 15 points. That's how tight this thing is right now. Chicago in 13th with 14. Red Bulls in 14th. And Toronto has now fallen to the worst record in the Eastern Conference with 12 points. Brutal. Over on the West, Seattle still sits top with 23 points. LAFC in second with 21. They have 2 games in hand, by the way. St. Louis in third with 19. Dallas in fourth with 18. San Jose in fifth with 18. Portland in sixth with 15. Houston in seventh with 14. Vancouver in eighth with 14. Minnesota has fallen all the way to ninth, sitting with 12 points. There was a time where they were undefeated, and Adrian Heath was the coach of the year and tactical genius. Jack, go ahead and comment what your thoughts are now. Colorado in 10th with 12 points. RSL in 11th with 11 points. Austin all the way down at 12th with 10. And they better watch out because LA and SKC have both won, and they are only 1 point back as they both now have 9 points on the year. What a crazy bit of I mean, SKC is 3 points out of a playoff spot right now.
Yeah. It's been nuts. Like it's like it's flipped on its head. Like there's teams that Jordan over the last couple of weeks have been talking about, and now all of a sudden some of them are back into contention of playoff spots, pretty high up the playoff spots. I mean, there's tons of, there's so many stories that you could talk about, which, I mean, it is a lot of fun this season. I feel like there's a lot of things that are either going completely wrong or started way off, have come back around, have really started to kind of catch the attention of fans. I think. I mean, up and down the list. I mean, I could go through each of these teams and just tell you, like, it's just there's so much going on in this league right now, and it's not even to the dog days of summer yet. So it should be pretty interesting this last couple of weeks as we start to head into June and July, and then Leagues Cup kind of breaks up this kind of wacky schedule. You look at these standings and go, goodness, like what's wrong with this league? So,
Yeah, I mean, both teams at the bottom, Toronto and SKC, are 3 points out of a playoff spot. Toronto has 12 points. DC has 15. DC sits 9th. SKC sit 14th with 9 points, and Minnesota sits 9th with 12. So there's a real possibility here for this to really stretch into the rest of the year like this. I mean, the West is really bunched up. If LAFC win their 2 games in hand, they'll kind of be at 24 points. No, they'll be at 27 points. They'll kind of be flying at that point. I mean, there's only a 7-point gap from 3rd place to 9th, right? So teams from 3rd place down are in the teens when we're talking about points, except for Austin, LA, and SKC. Now, over in the East, it is a 4-point gap from 3rd to 9th. And actually from 3rd all the way down to 12th is a 4-point gap, 5-point gap from 3rd to 13th, and a 7-point gap from 3rd to 15th. That's 7 points is 3 matches, right? I mean, 7 points is 2 wins and a draw difference. So anything can really change. We saw Orlando go from like 5th to 11th. We've seen Philly go from 12th to like 5th now. The main constant has been that top 4 of New England, Cincy, Nashville, and Atlanta, and they better watch out because the Union have a game in hand, and they can leapfrog all the way up to 3rd. So Union kind of coming on strong here now that they've, lost 3 competitions. They're like, we can finally start playing. They're moving on up. Miami, we were talking about Phil Neville being on the hot seat. He's up to 6th place now. There was a point, Logan, where Montreal hadn't won a game. They hadn't scored more than 3 goals or whatever. They have now scored 11 goals. They're in place. And they can immediately drop right back out, right? If Charlotte, Orlando, and NYCFC win a game, they're all the way back up there. NYCFC was in 4th at one point. They're down to 10th. It's just topsy-turvy right now.
Yeah, the hottest team in the league is Montreal. They've won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Didn't think I'd be saying that. I thought we'd be talking about Hernan Losada being jobless again, unemployed, because I thought that's where that was headed and how poorly
this is why it's kind of weird that DC fired him so quickly, I guess, but also why when we're looking at it, like Ezra Hendrickson getting fired already, because you can make a run really quickly. Look, Sporting Kansas City hadn't won a game all season until last week, and they've won 2 in a row. And they now have 12 points. They're still in last. They're now only 3 points out of a playoff spot. And hope is alive. And that's where you're kind of like when Peter Vermes says there's no must-win games, he's kind of right? Because you're like, the must-win game was the one the first win. That was the one. They're now kind of at a spot where they can just win another game and be in a playoff spot, and everything's forgiven, I feel like, right? Like, they'll be like, oh, wow, we're good again. And they might fall right back out of it, but, it's just the optical illusion of being in a playoff spot, I think, sometimes. Really surprised by Columbus fluctuating all the way down. It's crazy. Crazy times. I mean, even a Charlotte win can move them up to 18 points, and the Union could fall right back down again. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the early season anymore. We're 12 games in at this point, where things would normally be sort of evening out a bit, and not. We're like, what, a third of the way through the season?
Yeah. And I think we see something this year too that we just don't normally get with that whole month break that we're going to take for Leagues Cup. where
In a month, yeah, in a month.
where teams are going to at the start of July either try to take this competition seriously, where they're playing Mexican teams, where they want to kind of show out on a big stage, and then you're going to have other teams that don't take it as seriously, that just want to drop out and get some rest for their guy. Like there's going to be such a weird dynamic, because it's not like your domestic cups where like you play midweek and you kind of have to balance the schedule. I think honestly it might be easier. This is different. Like this is a really different idea that I don't think many of these players are used to, unless there's a World Cup that interrupts their season, right? But now you're getting like a second World Cup interruption, where it's like, it's a full month. If you plan to be competitive in this tournament, it's almost like a full month of competition stop. Like, yeah, it's good for healing some of the players that have been hurt, but it's also not great for form. So I got to think teams, like, I don't know how I would do this as a coach. I mean, you got like a month and a half left until you've got this competition. Like, how does Philly go into this knowing that like we just got bounced from the competition that I think they really wanted? Now they've got to refocus and realign. Now I think MLS Cup is ultimately their big goal. Leagues Cup is just a weird interruption from that. And I think Philly might take that as an advantage to say, hey, let's just rest some players and get some guys some time. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of clubs like that.
What would be interesting too is I think some of these teams might end up scheduling friendlies after the tournament to keep form.
Yeah.
Whether it's
play the European teams at that point.
Well, I don't know if they can, because they have to know ahead of time, I would think. So since you don't know if you're going to get knocked out, it's probably going to be like, okay, Philly and Red Bulls get knocked out. Hey, why don't we play a behind the door scrimmage on Wednesday?
Yeah,
and they'll probably do that type of stuff. I think they did that kind of stuff during MLS's back for some of these teams that got knocked out.
Still should bring that tournament back. I love that tournament.
All right, let's preview the games. I'm not going to press the jingle this time, but tomorrow we got games on Wednesday, by the way. Atlanta, Colorado, 7:30. It's free on Apple TV. We got Charlotte and Chicago at 7:30. Cincy versus Montreal at 7:30. That one's free, and that's now kind of a interesting match. Crew hosting LA Galaxy at 7:30. Orlando hosting NYCFC for the 2015 Expansion Cup. That is free on Apple TV, by the way. Philadelphia Union hosting DC United. This is considered rivalry week for some reason. Apple TV, it's free. It's also on FS1. Toronto hosting the Red Bulls at 7:30. Dallas hosting Vancouver at 8:30. That's free. Minnesota hosting Houston at 8:30. That's free. Nashville hosting Miami at 8:30. RSL hosting Portland at 9:30. LAFC hosting SKC at 10:30. And Seattle hosting Austin at 10:30. Before we move on to Saturday games, anything jump out to you on tomorrow's slate?
I mean, just looking at it, I mean, I think you kind of alluded to the obvious choice, I think, with Cincinnati playing by the hottest team in MLS, I guess, looking at the wins. But I'm going to go with one that's kind of an interesting one that I think, like you said, it's so topsy-turvy here to what is this, about a third of the way through. So looking at the Miami and Nashville game, I think is really interesting. Miami currently sits sixth with only, they've got 15 points. Nashville's got 19, sitting in that third spot. If Nashville drops a game, and Miami actually has a game in hand over Nashville, like it's reasonable, and it could be possible, Jordan, that we're talking about next episode, where we're talking about Miami throwing themselves into a 4 or 5 spot. Okay, that's nuts to me because of how poor they've played, and such a huge piece in Gregory being out. But now you kind of have this resurgence of Joseph Martinez. Like, Joseph has scored 3 goals, and he looks like he's starting to come into form. And if he stays healthy, you know what that means for the league. So I'm really digging it. I'm excited to kind of see what Miami can do. Nashville's not going to outscore you, so it's a matter of, can Miami score on the defense that's the best in the league. So I think that's a really good matchup. I think it's got some fireworks in it. So
I'll say I'm very interested about LAFC SKC, since SKC has won 2 in a row. LAFC kind of has some games to make up. 2 weeks ago. They're looking at this one probably like easy win. Is it still easy win, or is it this topsy-turvy MLS season where LAFC could lose this one? They did lose to San Jose earlier in the year. I don't know. It's interesting, but I think I'm gonna have to go with I really like Philly DC. DC's a playoff team so far this year. Philly's back in it now. That's my dad's team, DC versus my team. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm kind of glad that's the FS1 game actually. Not that I won't watch it on Apple, but for people elsewhere that are not subbed that might stumble across it. All right, and then on Saturday we have Charlotte hosting Nashville at 7:30. That's apparently a rivalry. Cincinnati hosting Columbus at 7:30. That is the Hell is Real derby there. DC hosting LA Galaxy. Now, this should be considered rivalry. It's not. And it's not a regional one, but these are both 96 clubs. They faced off in MLS Cups in the, first year. Both of them have Bruce Arena lead them the MLS Cups. I think that's a rivalry match, but whatever. Miami, Orlando at 7:30. That's a rivalry match. Red Bulls, Montreal at 7:30. Philly hosting the New England Revs at 7:30. That's a rivalry match. Austin, Toronto at 8:30. Chicago, Atlanta at 8:30. Dallas, Houston at 8:30. That's a rivalry match. Colorado, RSL at 9:30. That is free on Apple TV. That is so deemed a rivalry. St. Louis hosting SKC, Apple TV. It's also on FS1 and it's free. It's a rivalry week match. LAFC hosting San Jose at 10:30. That is rivalry week. Portland hosting Minnesota at 10:30 and Vancouver hosting Seattle at 10:30 in a Cascadia matchup, which is of course a rivalry. So there we go. Anything else to share before we zip on out of here?
No. I mean, kind of looking at it, I think New England looks good, but kind of hit like a little stumble there, where I think that they wish to grab at least a point there on the road against Miami. But other than that, I mean, I feel like New England's been the cream of the crop, and we've talked a lot about them, and then also Seattle in the West. So who would have thought, Jordan? Who would have thought? I know Seattle, everybody was kind of waiting to kind of bounce back, but looks like they have. So pretty excited about this year. I think it's gonna be interesting down the stretch.
No, we're not at the stretch yet, but
right. A seventh inning stretch.
Yeah, like the third inning stretch.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's still a stretch, I guess, right? It's the end stretch before the League's Cup. Guess where I got my tickets to?
Are you going to the Ed Sheeran concert too?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to the MLS Skills game against Arsenal.
Did you finally buy
$15 tickets? My dad got them, so I'm gonna go with my dad, and I guess my mom's going, but my wife's going too. So I'll have to get off work early that day and drive down, because that's like a Tuesday. Because then the All-Star game's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
So, yikes. But yeah, so that should be fun. That's in 2 months. So I'm excited for that. I thought it'd be more fun to do that because I've been to All-Star games before. I have not been to a skills challenge, so I thought that could be fun. Plus, tickets are pretty cheap, so. The closed pyramid. Guess what? I woke up on Sunday. It was Mother's Day. Totally forgot to record that, so that's coming next week. It was Sunday night. Yeah. I'm getting ready to shower, and I'm like, I did not record that today.
Yeah. Been there.
Oops, that'll come next week, I guess, or this weekend, whatever it is. Because I try to make that bi-weekly. So it'll be tri-weekly this time. You can give us a follow at Stateside Show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Thank you all for watching or listening. We will catch you all next time